members of the government said they did not want it to be debated, that's the end of the matter. He actually said that it is a two-phase thing. We first bring it before the House, and once the members of the government said nay to our notice of no confidence, he would call for division. There was no need to debate. That was his position. However, it is interesting and true to form that when that position was put into a letter by our esteemed leader, Dr. Friday, and sent to the Speaker of the House, he sought to resign from that position and even sent a letter to 74 News calling our position deceitful. And he said that was not his position. In fact, it was, and he went on to say that there were, which he did say that there were two other ways in which he can bring it. But what we were concerned with is the one way which obtained on that day, because our motion was brought and presented to the Speaker while Parliament was sitting. And so there was really no need to go into all the other conditions that would happen if it was brought at a different time. Be that as it may, we wrote our letter and sent it to the Speaker, and as far as I know, we haven't had a response. We have not had a response, and instead, we got a letter, somewhat high-handedly written by Dr. Gonsalves, reiterating his position, claiming that he has the support of Dr. Francis Alexis, and Parnell Campbell, and to some extent, I think, Linton Lewis. Well-known legal luminaries in the Caribbean. That in itself does not make their position correct. In fact, the NDP is absolutely resolute, absolutely confident that our interpretation of that section is correct, and we're not doing it for legalistic and cheap political mileage. We are correct in our interpretation, and Dr. Fry has penned a letter in response to the letter from Dr. Gonsalves, and you will now hear about that letter from Dr.
Thank you very much. Okay. Just to reiterate, I submitted a letter to the Speaker of the House on January 29th. That was the motion for motion of no confidence in the government. This was set down to be heard on the 31st, as you all know, and you're quite familiar as Mrs. Bacchus-Batiste has outlined, Senator Bacchus-Batiste has outlined what transpired in the Parliament. Essentially, unless we had a majority support of the member in the House, which both of them want to do basically the same thing, or we could bring the motion unless it was set down by the clerk of the House. It couldn't be debated, it couldn't be decided upon. The Speaker seemed to have rejected that argument, and the next prong of their attack on the motion, the constitutional motion, was to say that they are entitled to amend it, and to amend it in such a way that changed the new motion that they proposed was the one that they debated in the House, and not surprisingly, they passed it, and they went on a merry way. The Prime Minister, the Speaker, as you know, since then has said that he made an error, that he decided it wrong, but that, be as it may, it's still the ruling of the Speaker that the motion of no confidence presented by the opposition will be amended to the extent where it's no longer a motion of no confidence. I'm sure you have a copy of the letter that I sent to the Speaker that I gave you last week. The Prime Minister has written to me a letter which was dated February the 8th, saying that basically that I'm wrong, in his usual tone of language and so on, using interspersed with insults here and there, and that he has the support of eminent legal scholars and other persons in the region of some repute who say that his interpretation is correct, that a motion of confidence cannot be brought without the support of the government or until the clerk sets it down to be heard, and that it can be amended to the extent where it's no longer a motion of confidence. If they support this position, that is his position, so that is what they are supporting. I have responded to what the Prime Minister said in his letter, and more than that, I have elaborated on what the letter that I sent to the Speaker to outline, the legal basis of our position, which I hope will become clearer to you in the media and the general public, and also to reiterate that we stand by our position. The letter was delivered to the Prime Minister's office today, and I will respond. But I know that the letter that he sent to me, dated February the 4th, appended to that letter was the opinion of Dr. Alexis, QC, Francis Alexis, who wrote a legal opinion upon which he, the Prime Minister, says that he relied. I'm sure that the press has just gotten that, a copy of that as well. And what I have sought to do, because this is part of what is out there in the public domain, is to explain and to respond to the legal opinion and the assertions made in the letter by Prime Minister Gonzalez in the letter to me, dated February the 8th. So I will outline that now in my letter. The letter is dated February the 15th, that's today's date, well, it's yesterday's date. And it says there, Dear Prime Minister Gonzalez, read a motion of no confidence under Section 47(2) of the Constitution of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the standing orders of the House of Assembly. I acknowledge receipt of your letter dated February the 8th, 2018, with the enclosed legal opinion of Dr. Francis Alexis, QC, dated February 5th, 2018. I note your observation that the conclusions of Dr. Alexis on the issue of Section 47(2) of the Constitution are shared by Mr. Barnell Campbell, QC, and by the Honorable Attorney General, Mr. John D. Martin, who advised the government accordingly. In your exchanges with the Speaker of the House of Assembly, the Honorable Joe Thomas, during the sitting of the House on Wednesday, January 31st, 2018, you made, among others, the following assertions. Mr. Speaker, and I'm quoting here, Mr. Speaker, with great respect, I have already said that the opposition can bring a motion of no confidence only if the government acquiesces or agrees. Unless you have this initial step, which has to be overcome, you are going to have chaos in the Parliament coming forward. Upon a perusal of Dr. Alexis's legal opinion, I am unable to discern where the learned jurist advises that the acquiescence of the government must first be obtained before a notice of motion of no confidence in the government can be brought by the opposition. Evidently, that position is a product of your own personal misguided interpretation of the Constitution. In summary, this is the letter that I wrote to the Prime Minister, and this is what I've outlined in it. In summary, Dr. Alexis opines that, and I'm quoting here from the letter, that the opinion that Dr. Alexis provided to the Prime Minister. Section 47, subsection 2A of the Constitution of St. Vincent is unique in providing for a no confidence motion in the detailed way it does, while Section 47(2)B preserves the general approach to such motions. It is unique, 11.2, this is the points in his opinion, 11.2. In its uniqueness, Section 47(2)A is a complete whole, entire unto itself. It expressly sets out conditionalities or limitations, thus excluding the implying of others into it. 11.3. Section 47(2)A has a two-stage process. Paragraphs 11.4 and 11.5 below refer. The paragraph 11.4. Stage 1. as the Speaker summoning the House, the process has 21 days to run, during which time the motion may be considered by the House, or the House may dispose of it unqualified. 11.5. If stage 1 is not completed in the 21 days, the clerk of the House summons the House and he sets a time for the purpose of debating and disposing of the motion. 11.6. The process has 2 stages on giving section 47 to what is called in legal terms a purposive construction. 11.7. Such purposive construction avoids the plain, manifest absurdity of holding that any and every time notice of a no confidence motion is given to the Speaker, the motion must be debated and disposed of. 11.8. That section 47(2)(a) does not entail such absurdity is bolstered by section 47 subsection 2b, preserving no confidence motions other than those under section 47(2)(a). There would be no need to preserve such other motions if those under section 47(2)(a) must always be debated and disposed of. End quote. To consider and dispose of the motion of no confidence. The learned jurist Dr. Alexis states at paragraph 9.4 of his opinion that the Constitution makes no distinction between the formulation that the motion be considered and the stipulation that the House dispose of the motion. In the Constitution, it doesn't say that the two things are different. He goes on to say in section 9.5 of his opinion, once the motion is dealt with within 21 days of its notice, the Speaker must have would have acted with due dispatch. The Constitution is well pleased. Once that time frame is adhered to, then how the motion is considered or disposed of is a matter within what section 47(2)(b) refers to as the power of the House. Given that the Speaker, this is now my letter, given that the Speaker had caused the notice of motion of no confidence that I submitted to him on Monday, January 29th, to be considered by the House of Assembly on Wednesday, January 31st, well within the 21 days, in keeping with Dr. Alexis's opinion, the Speaker acted with due dispatch. The vexed issue, therefore, must be concerned with the manner in which the House could have considered and or disposed of the notice of motion of no confidence. How is the motion to be considered and disposed of under section 47(2)(a) of the Constitution? According to Dr. Alexis, this is a matter within what section 47(2)(b) refers to as the power of the House. We must therefore examine that paragraph, which provides as follows, and I quote, the provisions of paragraph A of this subsection shall be without prejudice to the power of the House to provide by its rules of procedure that notice of motion of no confidence in the government may be given by any member of the House or the power of the House to debate and dispose of such a motion at any sitting of the House. End of quote. As you are aware, the House has not provided any rules of procedure pursuant to paragraph 47(2)(b) for a notice of motion of no confidence in the government to be given by a member, or any rules of procedure to debate and dispose of such a motion at any sitting of the House. So no rules of them were made by the House So we have to rely on the Constitution. Accordingly, the House did not have the power to consider or dispose of the motion of no confidence pursuant to any rules of procedure made under Section 47. Subheading. No rules of procedure exist specifically for motions of no confidence in the government, meaning that the House didn't make any rules pursuant to the Constitution to deal with that matter. Although there are no rules of procedure providing specifically that a notice of motion of no confidence in the government may be given by any member of the House or in respect of the power of the House to debate and dispose of such a motion at any sitting of the House, there are standing orders made under Section 45(1) of the Constitution, which provide that, and I quote, Section 45(1), subject to the provisions of this Constitution, that's important. It says, subject to the provisions of this Constitution, the House may regulate its own procedure and may, in particular, make rules for the orderly conduct of its own proceedings. Well, the House did that because we have the standing orders. These were passed under that provision of the Constitution. However, there are no rules and procedures in the standing orders specifically providing for the power of the House to debate and dispose of the motion of no confidence in the government, which is moved by any member of the House, and none to be found under any other provision of the Constitution or other laws of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Simply put, none exist. Now we're turning to the standing orders of the House made pursuant to Section 45(1) of the Constitution. I said above that the Constitution allows you to make these standing orders under Section 45. Now we look at the standing orders of the House made pursuant to Section 45(1) of the Constitution. Nevertheless, the standing orders provide at Rule 28, and I set out the rule here. It reads, subject to the Constitution and to these standing orders, it shall be competent for any member of the House by way of a motion, any matter for debate in the House. Proposed by way of motion, any matter for debate in the House. Okay, sorry about that. 28 sub 2. On a motion made and when necessarily seconded, the Speaker shall propose the question to the House, and after debate, if any, shall then put question for the decision in the House. I'll read that section again. On a motion made and when necessary seconded, the Speaker shall propose the question to the House, and after debate, if any, shall then put question for the decision of the House. How did the House proceed to consider and or dispose of the motion of no confidence? The House purported to consider and or dispose of the motion of no confidence in the government pursuant to the standing orders. More particularly, it did so by amending the notice of motion under Rule 25(8) and 32. These rules are expressly prescribed by Section 45(1) of the Constitution to be subject to the provisions of the Constitution, including the provisions of Section 47(2)(a), of which Dr. Alexis asserts in his written opinion, and I quote, at paragraph 10.6, Section 47 with their own express limitations. There is no basis for further implying other limitations into that. Paragraph 10.7 of his opinion, he says, where the Constitution puts in place a dispensation, whether granting a right or placing a disqualification, unless the Constitution is duly altered, that dispensation may not be removed, even by a well-meaning agreement witnessed by the Prime Minister. Dr. Alexis concludes that the notice of motion under section 47(2)A is discrete from other notice, no confidence motions, when he states that, that's in paragraph 11(2) of his opinion, and I quote, in its uniqueness, section 47(2)A is a complete whole, entire unto itself. It expressly sets out its conditionalities or limitations, thus excluding the implying of others into it. Now I turn to the pivotal issue to be determined. In the circumstances, in considering and or disposing of the notice of motion of no confidence in the government brought under section 47(2)A of the Constitution, and which is discrete from other motions of no confidence, does the House have power to use the standing orders made under section 45(1) of the Constitution to amend it so as to transform the character of the motion from one to resolve the question that the House has no confidence in the government, yes or no, to one which proposes the question that the House has full confidence in the government, yes or no. And the question, does the House have power to flip the motion of no confidence into a motion of full confidence? For purposes of section 47(2)A of the Constitution, to consider and dispose of a motion, the question in respect of which requires a vote of full confidence in the government, is not the same as to consider and dispose of a motion in which the question being proposed requires a vote of no confidence in the government. I am advised that based on Dr. Alexis's reasoning in his written opinion, that section 47(2)A is discrete, a complete whole unto itself, and already expressly spells out limitations on itself, and that where the Constitution puts in place a dispensation, whether granting a right or placing a disqualification, that dispensation may not be removed unless the Constitution is duly altered, not even by a well-meaning agreement witnessed by you, the Prime Minister. Hence, if his formulation is adopted, that's Dr. Alexis, the House does not have the power to make that change. The rules contained in the standing orders made under section 45(1) of the Constitution cannot be used to defeat the right given by section 47(2) of the same Constitution to any three representatives to have their motion of no confidence in the government considered and disposed of by the House. So the argument is that you cannot use rules that are made under the Constitution, rules that are made to govern the procedures of the House, to defeat the provision of the Constitution. Given that the motion of no confidence in the government ought not to be thwarted by using the standing orders concerning amendments to flip it into a proposition which is the opposite of a resolution of no confidence, the next question must then be, what are the parameters within which it should properly be considered and disposed of by the House? What are the procedures under the standing orders? This requires that the provision of the standing orders by which the House ordinarily regulates its own procedures must be examined to see what their powers are and how they may consider and or dispose of the motion of no confidence in the government without abrogating any provisions of the Constitution, including section 47(2)(8). And I set out here some of the rules. Rule 15, this is of the standing orders. That rule governs order of business. The notice of motion of no confidence in the government was included in the order paper for the sitting of January 31st, 2018. Pursuant to Rule 15(1)(n), which provides that unless the House otherwise resolves, the business of each sitting shall be transacted in the prescribed order. Public business is the last item listed there. Another relevant rule, Rule 22, public business. Furthermore, Rule 22, sub 1, states that public business shall consist of motions other than those described in paragraph K of Rule 15, which are requests for leaves to move the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent business. And by Rule 22, sub 2, government business has precedence at every meeting of the House except the first day at the third meeting of any new session when private members' business has precedence. Also, by Rule 22, sub 5, no private member's business may be considered after 5 o'clock at any ordinary sitting of the House, and any business not reached shall stand over to the next sitting, and private member's business entered upon but not disposed of at that time shall be deferred until such time as the Speaker may determine. Or the Speaker and your government members have persistently contrived to frustrate any private member's business brought to the House by the opposition from being debated. On this occasion, the motion of no confidence in the government was particularly set down on the order paper to be dealt with by the House. This was done, no doubt, in an effort by your government to have it come on within the 21 days time frame in section 47(2)(a) of the Constitution, and to avoid it clashing with the budget presentation and debate, which was scheduled to commence on Monday, February 5th, and might be expected to go on for the usual 5 days and conclude on about February 9th, 2018. Now I deal with motions and amendments to motions are provided for under Rules 23 to 32 of the standing orders. Rule 23 requires that any motion which, in the opinion of the Speaker, would dispose of or charge public funds, or impose, alter, or repeal any rate of tax or duty, must first have the recommendation of Cabinet before it can proceed. You know, we always say that opposition or non-government members can't bring bills that will require the government to spend money. This rule is relevant to that. Rule 24 provides that notice must be given of any motion and must be signed by the member, addressed to the clerk at the House, and left at her office. If the standing orders require that notice is required for such motion. Furthermore, if the Speaker considers that the notice of motion received by the clerk infringes any of the standing orders or is any way out of order, he may direct that the member be informed that this is out of order, or that the notice be entered in the order book with such alterations as he may direct. This is standard procedure in the House. And Rule 25, motions exempted from notice. This rule provides for motions which may be made without prior notice being given. The first of these listed is a motion for amendment of any motion, which is what we're dealing with. This is the rule under which the government members purported to amend the notice of motion of no confidence in the government that was brought by the opposition. Rules 26 and 27 dispensing with notice and privileged motions. These rules prescribe that when notice of motion is required, it may not be dispensed with except with the consent of the Speaker and the majority of members present at the time, and that motions concerning the privileges of the House shall take precedence over all other public business. Rule 28, I set out above, already in my letter. Rule 29, that except for government business, the question on a motion or an amendment to the motion shall not be proposed by the Speaker unless same is seconded. Rules 30 and 31. Motions not moved or seconded and withdrawal of motions. Rule 30 provides that a motion or amendment shall be removed from the order paper if the member does not move it when it is called on. Not in our case. Unless another member duly authorized by him moves it in his place. Save for government business, which may be moved by any minister. And if a motion or amendment is not seconded, no record of proceedings on it is to be kept in the minutes of proceedings. And Rule 31 provides for the withdrawal of motions at the request of the mover after it has been moved, but before the question is put by leave of the House. Rule 32, amendments to motion. Rules 32, sub 1 and 2 provide that where a motion is under consideration in the House or in a committee thereof, an amendment may be proposed to the motion if it is relevant thereto, and that an amendment may be proposed to any such amendment if it is relevant thereto. So you have an amendment in the motion or an amendment of an amendment in the motion. The remainder of this rule sets out the procedure for making amendments to motions ordinarily. Rule 32(3) provides that, and I underline it again, an amendment to a motion may be moved and seconded at any time after the question upon the motion has been proposed by the Speaker or Chairman, and before it has been put by the Speaker or the Chairman at the conclusion of the debate upon the motion. When every such amendment has been disposed of, the Speaker or Chairman shall either again propose the question upon the motion, or shall propose the question upon the motion as amended, as the case may require, and after further debate which may arise thereon, shall put the questions to the House or committee for its decision. Is there an obligation for the House to debate a section 47(2)(a) motion of no confidence? This is the question. If we accept this, if we accept Dr. Alexis's view that any and every notice of motion of no confidence in the government that is given to the Speaker need not be automatically debated and disposed of, it is critical to point out the limited way that this applies. I'll give some examples. The recitals may, in the opinion of the Speaker, infringe his standing orders and may be altered as he directs to conform to them. Also, they may be amended provided that the question that remains to be resolved after the amendment is a vote of no confidence in the government. Further, the motion may be withdrawn or consideration and disposal may be deferred to any time during the 21 days, after which stage 2, that Dr. Alexis points out in his opinion, will kick in, and the Clerk of the House must summon a special meeting of the House at such time and place as she may specify for the purpose of debating and disposing of the motion. Whatever the cause for a motion of no confidence, not to be debated or disposed of within the specified 21-day time frame, this must be subject to the proviso that it should not be dealt with by the Speaker or the House in a manner that abrogates the provisions of Section 47(2) of the Constitution. Since, as Dr. Alexis writes, and I quote again, in its uniqueness, Section 47(2)(a) is a complete whole, entire unto itself. It expressly sets out its own conditionalities and or limitations, thus excluding the implying of others into it. We must always be mindful, that's end of quote. We must always be mindful that it provides expressly for a motion of no confidence in the government to be considered and disposed of. Certainly, it is not intended to provide for a motion of full confidence in the government to be considered and disposed of. The constitutional and political consequence of the vote of no confidence. That's something. The constitutional and political consequence, significance of a vote of no confidence in the government is underscored by Section 48(5)(b) of the Constitution, which provides that in the exercise, this is what happens if a vote of no confidence passes. In the exercise of his powers to dissolve Parliament, the Governor General shall act in accordance with the advice of the Prime Minister, provided that B, if a resolution of no confidence in the government is passed, and the Prime Minister does not within 3 days either resign or advise the dissolution, the Governor General, acting in his own deliberate judgment, may dissolve Parliament. Moreover, Section 49 of the Constitution provides for general elections to be held upon the dissolution of the House of Assembly because of the vote of no confidence in the government. It states, subject to the provisions of subsection 3 of this section, a general election of representatives shall be held at such time within 90 days after any dissolution of Parliament, or if the House has been dissolved by reason of a vote of no confidence in the government, at such time within 30 days after the dissolution, as the Governor General may appoint. So if the House is dissolved because of a vote of no confidence, you must have elections within 30 days. It doesn't say it has to be 30 days or 28 days. It says within 30 days. And certainly not within a 90-day time frame as usually applied. In contrast, and I continue that, in contrast, no such consequences rest on the outcome of a motion of full confidence in government. Therefore, your debate and vote on your motion of full confidence in the government were merely an exercise in undeserved self-congratulation. Conclusion. In sum, the proposition that the notice signed by at least, that's a notice of no, motion of no confidence, signed by at least 3 representatives of the House, and which is given to the Speaker pursuant to Section 47(2)(a) of the Constitution, is unique and distinct, means that it ought not to be subject to amendment and reformulation using standing orders made under Section 45(1) of the Constitution. Since any such amendments made under these standing orders are expressly stated to be subject to the specific provisions of Section 47(2)(a) of the Constitution. Moreover, if the question to be voted on, that is, that the House has no confidence in government, passes in the House, this would have momentous constitutional and political consequences. We've outlined already in Section 48. In that the Prime Minister may be replaced, or the House may be dissolved and general elections held within 30 days. In these circumstances, it is evident that the position you hold is not supported, even by the reasoning of the opinion of your designated legal gurus. Nevertheless, I shall not reciprocate the bombast exhibited in your letter to me, by which you sought to ridicule my position as being puerile disdain, as the words used, arrogance, and wrong-headed, and absurd. Instead, I shall repeat what I said in the House with the same strong conviction. Your position is simply wrong. I sent this letter to the Prime Minister today. It's long, I know, and sometimes very important, but I think it's important that the press gets this from us in full, and that those who are listening understand what it says. Now, in sum, what was presented by the Prime Minister in arguments in the Parliament and elsewhere, I see in an article from a news source, News 784, that the Prime Minister seems wrote a letter seeking to rubbish my position and the position of the opposition and those who have held similar arguments or positions that we have advanced. I just want to draw attention to one comment that he made in the letter. Usual, caustic style. Let's put it in polite. In that letter, he says that, what's the end of the letter? Or maybe through the letter. He says, in practical terms, in accordance with the standing orders in the House, after a motion of no confidence is moved and seconded, the Speaker then proposes the question to the House. And this is a quote. The question is that the Honorable House expressed no confidence in the government. Is there any debate? And this is his analysis. If the majority of the House overwhelmingly shouts no, and a division is asked for, that is, every representative's vote be counted individually, and the House defeats the question as proposed, that is the end of the matter. In that process, the motion would have satisfied the requirement of being considered. That is one basic way for consideration to be satisfied. There are, of course, other ways, including a debate, but the word considered in section 47(2)(a), and indeed in the ordinary meaning, does not mean debate on its merits. Well, first of all, what happens when a matter comes to the House and the Speaker asks, the motion is read out and so on, the Speaker asks routinely, debate? That is not a question for you to vote on. That's a question to say, okay, start the debate. The motion or the bill, the mover will get up and start the debate, which is precisely what I did in the House on the 31st. And if 3 members or some members don't want to debate, they don't usually say no when the Speaker asks debate. Maybe we have other members who are experienced in the House. Basically, you sit in your seat, nothing happens. If nobody gets up, the Speaker will then say, okay, remove the motion, wrap up. It's not a question that you vote on. But usually the matter is put there. So what he's saying here is entirely disingenuous and wrong. And to vote when the Speaker say, I read the motion and the Speaker says debate. It's not something for you to vote on. It's basically saying, is there anyone who's going to debate the motion? If 5 people were to say no and 1 says yes, that 1 person would still be allowed to debate. It's not a matter that you vote on. Which is what happens. Not every bill or motion that comes to the House has everybody debating it. Some people may get up and debate it. When they don't want to debate, they sit in the seat and remain quiet. And then the Speaker will conclude the debate. So to put that and to say that in fact this is how they actually approach the matter in the Parliament, by simply saying debate and all of them say no, that's the end of the matter. That is ridiculous. That is not how the ordinary rules of the House apply, and that certainly is not what the Constitution means when it says that the matter should be considered and disposed of by the House. So we maintain our position that the Prime Minister is wrong, and that our position is correct, and that the Constitution was violated in the way it was proceeded upon on the 31st of January. After you take all the arguments, all the insulting and whatever else that goes back and forth, ultimately what happened? What happened on Wednesday the 31st? Eh? They debated, but the motion of no confidence was not debated. And that's our point, is that you cannot negate the right to debate a motion of no confidence simply by saying, I don't want it. That's essentially what they did. In all the reasonings they put down, you can't do it. And no matter what you say, that is what happened in the House on the 31st. And if we accept that that is the interpretation to be given to the constitutional provisions, and that the rules will override it to such an extent that whatever is debated does not reflect the motion, then how can you argue otherwise that the constitutional provision has been negated? Which is what we have said. And the truth of the matter is, historically, this is not how it has been done. This is not how it's intended to be done. This is not what, in my view, the language of Section 47 of the Constitution requires. And hold to the position that what was done was unconstitutional, was wrong, and all the justifications that are coming subsequently feed into that. And the letter that the Prime Minister wrote to me on February 8th, I mean, he basically, all he says is, listen, I have all these big shots behind me. You know, Alexis and the Attorney General and Pierre Campbell. And if they say that we're right, then we must be right. Well, you know, that is not how legal arguments are determined. You know, lots of big shots will go to court and lawyers of eminence, and they don't win the case because the argument is correct. In this case, that's what happens here. So I just wish to add just two things before we conclude. One is that tomorrow, and this is a matter that I saw, I heard in the news, in the newspaper, and I've seen it, heard the advertisement, that there's going to be a celebration at the Argyle International Airport. I've heard that there are going to be speakers there, some of them from government and some from the ULP. There's a list, including public servants and the head of the airport, somebody from the airport, Jose Robertson. And that this is going to be some sort of a show. I don't know to what extent. The question I have to ask is this, yeah? And free food. Yes. Is, you know, who's paying for this extravaganza? That is the question. Who's paying for it? You will recall that when the airport was opened a year ago, there's some planes came in and flew in, and they were all kind of talk, you know, we're going to sell the tickets. Not really talking about as soon as these things go on sale, they're going to be taken up, and we're going to be able to reimburse, cover the cost. As we found out that taxpayers paid over $700,000 for that exercise in publicity for the ULP government. That's basically what it was. So the question that I'm asking today is that are taxpayers going to be made to pay the bill for this extravaganza that they're planning out at Argyle tomorrow? That is a relevant question, given the fact that for the third straight year in a row, that VAT has been increased on the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, or taxes have been imposed. Given the fact that we have serious hardship in the economy of this country, we need to know to ensure that government's money is not wasted on a bashment that is basically just a political advertisement for the Unity Labour Party and part of their campaign. So who is going to pay for that? Now, final thing is more personal related. You will recall that on January 31st that there was a bus crash up at in North Windward, and Mr. Amos Games, the driver of that, not a bus, a truck, that went over. And every time I drive right here, I wonder about the dangers that are there, and spectacular country and land, climbing hills and so on, but the same reason creates some very dangerous fields if they are not properly maintained. And proper guardrails and more retaining walls are not there. And this gentleman died carrying, I believe, basically trying to make a living. And I just want again to extend my condolences to his wife and three children, and to his sister, teacher in France, and also to those who are here tomorrow. It's always tragic and sad when you lose somebody so suddenly, and we want to acknowledge that this is a perennial danger. We've heard of situations in North Leeward that Roland Panther Matthews highlighted in his budget, his presentation, that we had the people's budget here earlier this week. And we hope that, as dangerous as they are, that there are no fatalities, further fatalities or serious injury before they are fixed and repaired. Every constituency have these concerns because the roads in this country are abysmal. They are the worst condition they've been since in living memory. And some of them are not just inconvenient, they are downright dangerous. And we have to continue to hold the government accountable and responsible for maintaining the pattern and to take taxpayers' money and not deal with these essential matters that provide safety and security for people. That's your ultimate responsibility. Nobody can touch a pebble in the road to say they're going to repair it. And somebody runs from right and tell them don't touch it, they can't do it. But at the same time, they are not doing the necessary repairs to prevent these accidents from happening. North Leeward is a prime case example. In my own constituency, we have the road at Bluff Point. You have to talk about this many times, which is very, very dangerous. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know, we have very limited time, but are there any questions and clarifications?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Yes. I can.
Seems. Ultimately, what will the NDP do about the motion of no confidence? Will you bring it back? Openly for responsible speaker?
Well, as I said, I spoke with the speaker after he received my letter. I haven't had a written response. You have heard me say that there are, the Prime Minister said to Parliament that he will take the matter up on a case basis. Nothing is going to happen like this. But let's see if he does. If he does, of course, we'll be happy to join in and having the matter dealt with by the court, because we have can be brought back. But again, if you accept the interpretation that has been provided in the House, then we can really get the same fate. Yeah, I know that the Speaker of the House has said if he's had a change, he made a wrong decision. But I don't know what it means in terms of what the right decision would be. But certainly, one of the red herrings that was raised in Parliament by Prime Minister Gonzalez with respect to motions of no confidence, and why it is that it cannot be that we can bring a motion, it should be entitled to debate it, because every Monday morning the opposition will bring a motion of no confidence and will frustrate the business of government. We've been in opposition for 17 years. This is the first motion of no confidence that you're bringing. Motions of no confidence are brought sometimes because you want to highlight certain issues, a strategic political decision. They're also brought because you can bring the government down as a primary objective. But in many cases, motions of no confidence do not carry, they do not pass, but they raise critical issues. So it's a total bogus red herring to say that, in the end, that the opposition can bring a motion of no confidence against them. They can, but practically speaking, it's not going to happen because, you look foolish to bring a motion of confidence. It's not going to have any effect. And the electorate is not going to judge you kindly if you're wasting the time and making yourself look foolish. So obviously there is that restraint on it. So you're asking what I'm going to do, you have to wait and see. But certainly that's an option that it can be brought to the House.
Was the People's budget a success?
Well, it is successful in the sense that we communicated our position on it. We got feedback, because we're not in the business of public relations. The budget will be successful if we in government and we can implement. So to that extent, We feel frustrated that we can't get the chance. We have not been able to get the government to adopt some of the very sensible things that we've been suggesting and bringing to their attention over the years, and that the New Democratic Party is not the government that is going to at this point implement many of the important issues that we have outlined, and to deal with the issues that we have criticized the government for. You know, you go to the honorable term, so they're talking about the education, but I spoke about the situation with respect to tourism and so on. We've had these, I mean, basic issues like the fixing of the bridge in North River that Roland had an answer to talk about. Yes, it's important that we can highlight these things, but you know, I wouldn't measure it in terms of success or not. I mean, I think the feedback that we receive from the people has been very, very favorable. That they feel that we have exposed many of the ills that they see in their daily lives, that we brought them to public attention.
Do you think that your positions got more attention than if they were expressed in Parliament?
Possibly, you know, they tell me that they don't listen to Parliament anymore. I mean, people see me when the estimates were brought, as I said, I keep repeating this, there was only one journalist in the House when the estimates were presented. Because they do happen elsewhere. But, you know, our objective in terms of raising the issues, yes, I believe that was accomplished. And all of the stuff that has surrounded the budget debate and the motion of confidence has heightened public attention at this particular time. So, in that sense, we had an alert audience who were, you know, engaged and ready to listen to what we had to say. So, from that point of view, I would say yes, if that's how you measure success. But certainly, our main concern is to raise issues, not just point of score political points or such like, but because we really want to improve the conditions in this country. We want the institution to do so, and we're going to do this elections.
Two quick questions. Any updates on the election petitions?
Well, it's the update is that every Monday morning we go for a decision in court, and every time I walk around Kingstown, there's so many people who are anxiously awaiting the outcome. They ask us questions. Myself, and I'm sure every member of the parliamentarian Democratic Party leadership, that people are very, very keen to know what is happening, and we don't have any news more than you have, but we are mindful of what Justice Henry said in her decision, and she, when the matter was discussed back in December and argued before, that she would bring her decision down in January. In the middle of February now, so I expect a decision anytime soon. And of course, we remain confident.
Finally, the first person to be charged under the cybercrime bill appeared in court this week. Senator Batiste is there, and we learned in court that you are now involved in the case as the defense attorney. Any comments on the bill or the development?
Yes. I was consulted by the lady yesterday, and I agreed to take the case because not only is the first case, but it's interesting because she was not properly advised. She said it was a policeman who advised her to plead guilty. So I asked the magistrate to locate her, and I think I could not be in court myself because I had another court to attend. So we will be putting up evidence when the matter comes up for next hearing. And my comment upon it also is that there are a number of other cases. I personally sent one to the Director of Public Prosecutions, which he just simply refused to do it and refused to answer. So my question is there one law for some people and another law for others? Because it seems to me that this law is going to be used as a political tool, and we will make sure that that doesn't happen.
Two quick clarifications. You said you sent one to the DPP. Can you elaborate?
It was something involving myself, comments which were made against me by someone on Facebook that had to do with really defamatory matter. It was politically motivated, clearly, by a known person who wears red all the time, writes all the time, vilifies a lot of people, and the DPP ignored it. I took copies of it, the post, the picture, the words that were said. Nothing was done. So I'm very interested to see what informs him or the prosecution that they will take up some and not others. And I can tell you, we're not going to allow this to be used as a political football.
Are you considering proceeding civilly?
Yes.
And you said that you're concerned that this will be used as a political tool, but this case is a case involving two systems. And as far as the, I'll leave it at that.
You better, because my information has something to do with politics, based on my information. But the point is, they have got their first case, and it's going to be defended. Okay, so if that's it, I just want to end by quoting one thing from the Hansard, because it's very interesting to see how Dr. Gonzalez speaks on the other side of his tongue when it suits him. To show that this whole debate about throwing out all the confidence motion is not genuine, it is just political. I want to refer to the Hansard for the 15th of August, 1995. And as I have mentioned before when I did my budget contribution, I didn't say when, but in 1995, the UNP, led by Dr. Gonzalez, they brought a vote of no confidence motion against Pan and Campbell and the Ndp. And in presenting that motion, which was defeated because the UNP was the opposition party, but in presenting it, I want to read the words of Dr. Gonzalez. Very quickly. He said, "This morning, we listened for an hour or thereabout, not to a defense by the Honorable Pan Campbell, the Attorney General, and in fact he was Deputy Prime Minister at the time. But what we got was a plea in mitigation. He came to us, he said, I borrowed the money. I have said he said, have some sympathy on me. Things hard with me, I'm a poor boy. Life is rough, so when I am run into difficulty, I went there. That is what we got." He makes it with a lot of legalism, saying, I have done nothing illegal. Therefore, if I have done nothing illegal, I have not done anything wrong against the public being. As we all know, there are many things which are legal but are wrong in your sight in this house and in the sight of the people. Anytime, and this is something I want you to pay attention to, anytime a man reaches the end of intellectual and moral tether and find a refuge only in legalism, it is time for him to go. And he went on, I repeat it. He said, anytime a man reaches the end of intellectual and moral tether and finds a refuge only in legalisms, it is time for him to go. And in this case, there were 5 legal opinions about the matter in favor of what Pan Campbell had done. And he called out the names of the lawyers. 5. He has 3 now. But he ignored the 5 then. He said it was just legalisms. So I will quote back his own words to him. And with that, thank you very much for coming.